Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. This time we're going to be looking at e-learning platforms, specifically what makes them successful. And we're going to be taking a look at this article from Site Design and Now W. They're a web design company. And the article is called Essential Features for a Successful E-Learning Platform Website. So whether you're thinking about building your own e-learning platform, or you want to improve an existing one, or you're just kind of curious about what goes into making online learning awesome, I think this is going to be a really great deep dive.
Yeah, it's a great topic, and I think it's really relevant these days because just having good content isn't enough. You really need to think about the user experience. How are you presenting and delivering that content to make a real impact? And I think this article really gets into that.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. The article starts by talking about course listings, and it really stresses the importance of going beyond just, a simple title and really giving potential learners a clear and complete picture of what to expect.
Yeah, we've all had that experience of signing up for something online and then finding out it wasn't quite what we thought it was going to be, so.
Yeah, detailed course descriptions avoid that kind of bait and switch. And it really comes down to setting clear expectations from the start, which I think is essential for building trust and keeping learners engaged.
Yeah, and I'm much more likely to commit to something if I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. It's like, would you buy a car without knowing the features or reading reviews? Probably not. And I really like this. The article also suggests including an FAQ section with each course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's being proactive. You're anticipating common questions and addressing them up front. Not only is it a good user experience, but it also shows that the platform is organized and attentive to the learner's needs. So I think those small touches can really elevate a platform.
Okay, now this is interesting. Social proof. The article gets a little poetic here, calling user reviews and testimonials speeches of success and tales of triumph. Well, I think the language might be a bit flowery, but there's no denying the power of social proof, especially in the online world. Actions speak louder than words. And seeing that other people have had a positive experience with a platform and they've achieved tangible results, that's incredibly persuasive.
It's so true. We all check reviews before, we try a new restaurant or we buy a product online. We want to hear from people who have actually been there and done that. Especially in e-learning, I think those testimonials can make a huge difference in convincing someone to, take the leap and enroll in a course.
Yeah, and especially for these e-learning platforms, they often lack, that physical presence and reputation of like a traditional institution. So testimonials and reviews become even more crucial. They're establishing credibility and building trust.
Makes sense. All right, moving on. The article brings up progress tracking, which they describe as a friendly map guiding learners on their journey. But I feel like we could dig a little deeper here. What are your thoughts on different types of progress tracking and how they impact learners?
Oh, for sure. I think it's not just about checking boxes, but it's about that well-designed system that provides learners with a sense of accomplishment and direction. Like, think about video games. You know where you level up or unlock achievements. And that's motivating to people. Some platforms use visual representations like progress bars or skill trees, and it shows learners how far they've come and what they need to do next. And that can be helpful for complex courses with lots of different modules.
Yeah, so it's not just about knowing how much you've completed, but it's also understanding the structure of the course and seeing how each piece fits into the bigger picture. And I guess different learners might respond to different types of progress tracking, right?
Absolutely. Some people love that visual feedback of a progress bar. Some people like to see a list of completed tasks. It really comes down to personalization again. The ideal platform would offer different options for progress tracking, and learners could choose what works best for them.
So speaking of personalization, the article also touches on gamification as a way to boost engagement. So things like badges and points and leaderboards. I have to admit, sometimes I find that a bit gimmicky. Do you think it can actually be effective?
Yeah. It can be a tricky one because when gamification is done right, it can be really powerful, but it can also feel a bit forced and even demotivating if it's not done well. Have you ever played a game where the rewards felt meaningless or the challenges didn't make any sense?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we want to avoid.
I've definitely had that experience. So how do you strike that balance? What makes gamification actually work in e-learning?
I think the key is to make it feel integrated. It needs to be meaningful rather than something that you just tacked on at the end. So, for example, instead of just awarding badges for completing modules, what if those badges unlocked special content or gave you access to a community forum? So it feels like you're earning something tangible and valuable, not just a virtual pat on the back.
Well, I like that. It's kind of like those loyalty programs. where, you earn points that you can actually use for something. It makes the whole process feel more rewarding. And I guess the design of the game itself is important too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The challenges and the rewards should be tailored to that specific course and to the learning objectives. It shouldn't feel like a separate game that's disconnected from the learning experience.
That makes sense. And, you mentioned that some people just might not be motivated by gamification at all. How do you cater to those learners?
Choice. A well-designed platform would allow you to opt in or out of gamified elements. And you could choose the learning experience that suits your preferences.
Okay, now this one feels like a no-brainer in today's world. But the article lists a mobile-friendly interface as a key feature. Is that really something that we still need to be emphasizing in 2024?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. We live in a mobile-first world, and e-learning needs to keep up with that. If you're trying to squeeze in some learning during your commute or on your lunch break, you're not going to want to lug a laptop around.
Right, it's all about accessibility and convenience.
Hmm.
And the article even mentions that Google prioritizes mobile-friendly websites in its search results.
Yeah.
So it's not just about making things easier for learners. It's also about visibility for the platform and SEO.
Yeah, absolutely. If your platform isn't mobile-friendly, you're essentially invisible to a huge chunk of potential learners. And honestly, a clunky mobile experience is so frustrating that it can actually make you want to give up on a course.
So mobile-first design, it's not just a trend. It's really a fundamental requirement. For any e-learning platform that wants to succeed, it's about meeting learners where they are and providing a seamless experience across all devices.
And it's not just about making the website responsive. You have to optimize the content for mobile as well. So, think concise videos, bite-sized modules, interactive elements that work well on touchscreens. It really has to be baked into the platform from the beginning.
So we've talked about creating a user-friendly experience. We've talked about making it accessible on any device. But what about the outcome of all this learning? What's the takeaway for the learner?
That's a great question. And that actually leads to another key feature that the article highlights: digital certificates of completion. It's easy to dismiss those as just a virtual pat on the back, but I think they're much more than that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think certificates can be really valuable, especially, in today's job market. They give you tangible proof of your skills and your knowledge, and that can make a big difference when you're applying for jobs or promotions. And they can be motivating, It's a symbol of your accomplishment, something to be proud of.
Yeah. It's about recognizing and validating the effort that learners put in. And it's not just about the individual. But certificates can also enhance the credibility of the platform itself. It shows that they are committed to quality.
And I love that certificates come in so many different formats these days. Printable PDFs, LinkedIn badges, shareable links. It's all about making it easy to showcase those achievements.
For sure. It's about giving them the tools to translate their online learning into real-world opportunities.
Okay, so before we wrap up this section, the article also mentions a few bonus features that can take an e-learning platform to the next level. They call them nuggets of knowledge.
Ooh, I like that. A bonus round.
So first up is live chat support. Being able to get immediate help of any technical difficulties or any course-related questions. It can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Live chat is a game changer. It's instant gratification, personalized help in the digital age. It can take something that could be frustrating and turn it into a positive experience.
Yeah, it's like having a virtual help desk right there.
And it's not just for troubleshooting technical issues. You can actually use it to get guidance on learning material, like having a virtual tutor.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, next up is community forums. The article suggests that these can foster a sense of connection and collaboration. And that can make the whole learning environment a lot more engaging and supportive.
Yeah, forums are such a great way to create that sense of community and peer-to-peer learning. And, online learning can sometimes feel isolating, especially if you're taking a course on your own. But forums allow learners to connect and share their experiences and ask questions, even collaborate on projects together. So it turns it into kind of a shared journey.
Yeah, I love the idea of having that space where you can bounce ideas off of other learners, get different perspectives, and really feel like you're part of something bigger.
Yeah, and you're not just connecting with other learners, you're connecting with instructors and subject matter experts in a less formal setting, So it breaks down some of those hierarchies and makes it a more open and collaborative environment.
That's a great point. And then finally, the article stresses the importance of regular updates. They keep the content fresh and relevant.
Oh, yeah, this is essential. I mean, the world of online learning is always changing, so platforms need to keep up. Regular updates show that they're committed to quality.
Right. Because outdated information can be worse than no information at all, especially in fields that are rapidly changing.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps the platform stay ahead of the curve, so learners know they're getting the best possible experience.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from course listings and social proof to mobile-first design and community forums. It's clear that creating a successful e-learning platform is about a lot more than just putting content online.
For sure, it's about understanding the needs of learners, creating an experience that's engaging and user-friendly, and building a sense of community around that learning journey.
And it's about constantly adapting and evolving to the ever-changing landscape of online learning.
Well said. So we've talked about the features, the nuts and bolts of a successful e-learning platform. But what about the content itself? You know what makes a learning experience truly engaging and effective? Well, that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of this deep dive. You know, it's fascinating how much the e-learning world has changed, even in just the last few years. It's gone from this niche educational tool to like a mainstream method of learning. And that creates so many new opportunities and challenges.
Totally. And I think one of the things that excites me the most is that it offers this potential for personalization and customization, which, we could never really do in a traditional classroom setting.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, that's really what sets it apart. You can learn at your own pace. You can revisit material as much as you want. You can even choose the format you want to learn in, like reading a textbook or watching a video or doing interactive exercises. It's about giving the learner control.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it ties back into what we were saying about progress tracking. Instead of just knowing how much you've completed, an effective e-learning platform can actually use data to adapt the learning path based on your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. Like imagine a personalized roadmap for your learning. The platform can figure out where you need more help, and it can point you to additional resources, or even change the difficulty of the material. That could be huge for students who don't do well in a traditional classroom.
It's like having a personal tutor built into the platform. But of course, with all this technology, we have to think about accessibility. Not everyone has high-speed internet or the latest devices.
Oh, that is such a good point and a big concern. You know, these platforms need to be designed with that in mind right from the start. We need to make sure that people with disabilities and people with limited internet access can use them. We don't want to make inequality worse.
Absolutely. We can't let the digital divide widen the gap. We have to make sure everyone has that equal access to education.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just the technical stuff, too. We also have to think about different cultures and languages, like translating content for learners from different backgrounds who learn in different ways.
You're right. E-learning has this huge potential to connect people from all over the world, but only if we think about those barriers. We have to make sure everyone feels welcome and supported.
Yeah, it's about being inclusive and making sure everyone feels like they belong. And that actually makes me think about the instructor, their role in this new digital age.
So it's not just about making great content and putting it online.
Not at all. I mean, platforms can automate a lot, but the human element is still so important. A good instructor can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like the difference between reading a travel guide and having a local show you around. The guide has information, but the local brings it to life.
I like that analogy. A good instructor can take a learning experience and make it so much better. They can lead discussions, give you feedback, even create a sense of community online.
So how do you see the instructor's role changing as this technology keeps getting better?
I think they'll move away from traditional lectures and do more mentoring and facilitating. They'll be more like guides, helping learners find their way, helping them personalize their learning, and develop important skills like critical thinking and collaboration.
Interesting. So they become more of a coach, helping students discover and learn on their own.
Exactly. It's about making them active participants and not just passive recipients of information. And with AI and personalized learning, instructors will have even more tools to help individualize the learning process.
That's pretty exciting. So speaking of exciting things, what do you think the future holds for e-learning? What trends are you most excited about?
Oh gosh, I mean, we're just getting started. Imagine things like immersive virtual reality simulations, where you can practice real-world skills, or augmented reality that adds interactive elements to your learning materials.
Wow. Sounds like something out of a movie.
I know, but it's not that far-fetched. These technologies are developing so fast. Imagine a medical student doing virtual surgery, or an architect walking through their 3D designs. or historian exploring ancient ruins. The possibilities are endless.
It's incredible. But with all this amazing technology, do you ever worry that we'll lose that human element of learning? You know, that connection between a teacher and a student, that spark you get in a classroom?
Yeah, I get that. We have to remember that technology is a tool. It's not a replacement for human interaction. We need to find a good balance so that technology makes learning better, but we don't lose the human element.
So we're not trying to replace teachers with robots. We're trying to use technology to help teachers.
Exactly. It's about combining digital and human, and one way to do that is through community.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit with the community forums, but maybe we could go a little deeper. What role do you see community playing in online learning in the future?
Well, I think it's really important to remember that learning is a social activity. We learn from each other, we support each other, and we challenge each other. E-learning platforms can create communities that go beyond borders. Imagine connecting with people from all over the world who share your interests.
It's amazing how the internet can do that. It breaks down barriers and connects us with people we might never have met.
I know, it's like a global study group. And it's not just other learners, it's instructors and experts too. It makes learning more collaborative and engaging.
So how do we create that sense of community online? It can't just be throwing people into a forum.
Oh, you're right. It takes work. You need active moderators, thoughtful prompts. You have to make sure it's respectful and inclusive. People need to feel safe asking questions and sharing their ideas.
It's about making people feel like they belong.
Exactly. And when you do it right, these communities can be so powerful for learning and innovation and even social change.
So we've talked about the technology, the role of the instructor, the importance of community. But in the end, it all comes back to content. What makes for a truly engaging e-learning experience? What makes learners want to keep coming back?
That is the question, isn't it? Because you can have the best platform, the most inspiring teachers, but if the content is boring, people will lose interest immediately.
Content is king. So what makes it stand out in e-learning? What grabs learners' attention?
Well, it has to be relevant. It has to matter to the learner. No one wants to learn something they don't care about. It has to answer the question, why should I care?
It's like a good movie. You need to hook the audience right away.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to do that is with stories. Case studies, anecdotes, real-world examples. Stories bring the content to life.
I love that. Stories make information more memorable and inspire us.
I agree. In e-learning, they can make it easier to understand tough concepts, and they help learners see how it relates to their lives.
So it's about making the learning experience better and more impactful. Okay, so storytelling is important, but what else makes for good content? What about how it's presented?
Well, you don't want to have huge blocks of text or hours of lectures. It has to be visual. It has to be short and broken down into little pieces. Think bite-sized learning.
So instead of one long video, you'd have several shorter videos.
Yeah.
With some quizzes and animations and games mixed in.
Exactly. And you have to think about different learning styles. Some people learn by reading. Some people learn by listening. Some people learn by doing. A good e-learning course will use all of those.
So it needs to be dynamic and personalized. Speaking of personalized, let's talk about feedback. That's important for any learning, but especially online where learners might feel a bit lost.
Absolutely. Regular feedback helps people stay focused, and it helps them see how they're doing. It can come from teachers or other students or even the platform itself. And it doesn't have to be about grades. It could just be a comment or a message.
It's about supporting learners.
Exactly. And feedback isn't just good for learners. It helps teachers too. They can see what's working and what's not.
It's a two-way street. Okay, so we've talked about content and different formats and feedback. But how do we know if it's actually working? How do we measure that?
Assessment. And in e-learning, it's not just about quizzes and tests.
So what else is there?
Well, you could have projects where learners use what they've learned in real situations, or peer evaluations where students give each other feedback. There's also self-reflection and portfolios and simulations.
That sounds a lot more interesting than a multiple choice test.
It is, and it gives you a much better idea of what the learner understands. The key is to choose the right assessment for what you're trying to teach and give learners lots of chances to show what they know.
And feedback is still really important here. Learners need to know how they're doing.
Absolutely. Assessment is about helping people learn and grow.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about e-learning.
Me too. It's been fun exploring this with you.
I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot too. But before we go, I have one last question for you. With everything we've talked about, what are you most excited about in the future of e-learning? What are the biggest opportunities and challenges?
It really is. It's an exciting time to be in education right now. So much is happening. And e-learning is at the center of it all.
For sure. So what are you personally most excited about?
You know what gets me really excited is the potential for e-learning to give everyone access to knowledge. Imagine everyone anywhere learning anything they want, no matter who they are or where they come from. That's what e-learning can do.
It's a pretty amazing idea. But how do we get there? What are some of the big challenges we need to overcome?
Well, we need to think about accessibility, like we were talking about before. The digital divide is a real problem. We can't let it make educational inequality worse. Everyone needs access to technology and the resources they need to learn online.
It's about making sure everyone has the same opportunities.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself. We also need to help people learn how to use it. Not everyone is comfortable online or with using technology to learn. We need to make sure everyone feels confident.
It's about empowering learners.
Yeah. And I think another challenge is making sure we don't rely too much on technology. We don't want to lose that human connection, the social interaction and the mentoring that are so important for learning.
So we need to find the right balance.
Exactly. Use technology to make learning better, but not forget about the human element. And I think blended learning is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Combining online learning with traditional classrooms, that way you get the best of both worlds.
I think that's really interesting. It seems like it could offer a much better learning experience overall.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And with all the new technology coming out, we're going to see even more ways to combine online and offline learning.
It's exciting, but it's also a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so interesting. It's always changing and evolving.
Yeah. So to wrap up our deep dive on e-learning platforms, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the most important thing to remember is that technology is a tool. It's not the solution itself. The real value of e-learning is in the human connections we make, the stories we share, and the things we learn.
I love that. And as our world becomes more and more digital, those human connections are more important than ever.
For sure. So whether you're an experienced online learner or just starting out, be open to new possibilities, connect with others, and never stop learning.
Never stop being curious. That's what it's all about. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic. Until then, keep learning and keep diving deep.